Hello, Utah FFA. My name is Sakia White, and I am so excited to be the Delegate Coordinator for the Utah FFA Association. Throughout this short video, you're going to learn about the delegate process as it pertains to state convention and what your roles and responsibilities might look like if you are a delegate. So let's get right in. Why would you want to be a delegate in the first place? Well, the first reason is that the delegates are the leaders of this organization. They are the small group of people that get to decide and make changes and find solutions for the future of the Utah FFA Association. Number two, it provides you with the skills necessary to succeed. Throughout the delegate process itself, throughout that, you will learn skills that you could take later on in life. The delegate process has a lot of similarities to how the government works. And so kind of taking on that role as a high school student is something that is extremely unique. Lastly, delegates, you get to be a part of something so much greater. To be able to represent your chapter on a state level and address some concerns and needs of FFA members across the state is something that I found to be extremely important and amazing during my time in the Utah FFA. So let's go over quickly just what is a delegate's job. Don't tune out, I know there's a lot of words, but hang with me for just a second. Let's read this together. Delegate process is an opportunity for members to direct the work of the FFA. It is important for delegates to focus on serving the best interest of FFA members in each chapter. 2 delegates represent each of the 93 chapters and bring a variety of experiences and perspectives to the process. It can be challenging for members to synthesize the varying viewpoints for the sake of progress. Therefore, 1 state officer and 1 chapter advisor will be assigned to each delegate group. The rules contained in the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, shall govern the Utah FFA Association in all cases to which they are applicable and in which they are not inconsistent of the National FFA Constitution and its bylaws. Delegates of the Utah FFA Association are chosen to be the heart of state convention. In doing this, each delegate should act professionally and bring enthusiasm and the utmost excitement to the convention hall. I know that was a lot of big fancy words, but in a nutshell, that is what your job is of a delegate. Now, if you tuned out because you've been in class all day, I totally get it. What I want you to remember from this slide is that the delegates have the opportunity to be the voice of the members. Okay, that's what I want you to remember from this slide. So let's dive into what the delegate process looks like as it pertains to state convention. So like was said earlier, each FFA chapter gets to send 2 members to state convention to be delegates. We're going to refer to these 2 people as delegates from this point forward. Those delegates get put into different groups depending on what proposals we have to discuss. So once they're in those different groups, we call those groups committees. We'll learn a little bit more about the committee process here next. The committees will go through the issue at hand. They'll make a representation to present the second time the delegates meet. So the delegates get to meet twice, once in the committee and once in the delegate business session. And we'll talk more about those here in just a second. Just wanted to give you a little overview of the whole process. So you'll meet in the committee, you'll come up with a committee recommendation, and then we'll meet a second time as a whole delegate body, and we will meet during that business session, and we'll vote on each one of those committee recommendations as a whole delegate body. After that, each committee recommendation has to be voted on and passed by the delegate body. If it's not passed, it dies there. If it is passed, it then goes on to the Utah FFA Advisory Board for their consideration and further implementation if need be. So let's talk specifically about the committee process. So like I said, that first time the delegates meet. So each committee will be given a proposal. That proposal can be a variety of different things. It could be a problem. It could be just going over the Utah FFA's POA for the year. It could be looking at the finances. It just depends on the year. So each of those committees is comprised of a chapter advisor from the state, chairperson, and that's going to be within the committee. You guys will decide who you want to be your chairperson and who you want to be your secretary. And then the rest of the committee members are just delegates. They're just FFA members from throughout the state. We'll also have a state officer tied to that committee as well. Once you're in your committees, things that you will do. So during that first meeting, you're going to look over your proposal. You're going to make any edits you see fit. You're going to ask any questions, and that's what the advisor is there for, is to help answer any questions that might arise throughout this process. Lastly, the last thing you'll do in that committee meeting is make a committee recommendation to present to the whole delegate body. So, for example, let's say I was on the committee to talk about the state's POA, the Utah FFA's program of activities, and they forgot to list state convention on the program of activities. So my committee, we could make a recommendation that we add back in state convention for these dates. Or, so that's just kind of an example of something that you might do in a committee. Or maybe we say, hey, you know what? Utah FFA could really benefit from a summer activity. We would recommend the addition of a summer activity on the statewide level. Those are some things that you might do in the committee meetings the first time the delegates meet. So the second time the delegates meet is what we call the delegate business session. So we're going to take everyone's committee reports, and the chairperson is going to present that committee report to the entire delegate body. That delegate body being 2 delegates from each chapter in the state. So that chairperson is going to read the committee's report, and then the delegate body is going to vote on that committee report. So we'll continue using that example of the POA. So let's say that in my committee, we discussed that we needed to add a summer activity to the Utah's program of activities. Well, I read that to the delegate body, and the delegate body says, you know what? We're too busy with our SAEs in the summer. We don't want to do that. The delegate body could then raise their hand, be recognized. We run it kind of like Parley. But any delegate, be on that committee or not, could stand and say, you know what, I feel like I'd like to amend this statement. We have enough going on in the summer with our own chapters and SAEs. We don't feel like this is needed. And then, so I recommend that we amend this to take that line out. So the delegates, you guys get to vote and decide what you feel is best for the entire Utah FFA. Once we feel like we've come to an agreement, the delegates will then vote on the proposal as a whole. And if it passes, then that committee report will go on to the Utah FFA Advisory Board for their further consideration and implementation if need be. So let's talk a little bit about, some of this might seem kind of foreign, but a lot of great things have come from the delegate process. Like I said, we have this on the Utah FFA side, and we also have it on the National FFA side. So let's talk National FFA first. What things have come from the delegate process? One of the cool things being the inclusion of the Virgin Islands in the opening ceremonies. So I don't know if we have any chapter reporters in the crowd, but the chapter reporter, or the reporter part of opening ceremonies, used to say from Alaska to Puerto Rico and Maine to Hawaii. And it now says Alaska to the Virgin Islands and Maine to Hawaii. That was something that came from the delegate process, and members of the Virgin Islands felt that they weren't being included because geographically they're further out than Puerto Rico. Something kind of cool, but completely changed every single FFA chapter because we now say opening ceremonies differently. Girls in FFA. I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the delegate that brought forth in 1969 the issue of having girls in FFA. Brought forth that proposal, and because of the delegate process, girls are now allowed in FFA. I'm extremely grateful for that. Couple other things, we've made some changes to official dress along the way. We've also implemented a new LDE in FFA, the conduct of chapter meetings. That idea came out of the delegate process. Now, specifically to Utah, like I mentioned, that job description we read at the beginning, that came out of the delegate process. The chapter records contest, being able to accept record books that had been done online, that came out of the delegate process. And it can be as simple or as complex as you make it. So, like I said, National FFA, we added a whole new LDE. Another thing we did on the Utah side was just change some language. So a lot of our, be it state officer applications or proficiency awards, it used to say, received by, and then the date. Well, the delegates didn't feel like that was okay because depending on where you were at in the state, the mail system might not be as reliable. So you could send, say you're in Salt Lake and you send an application in on Friday and it's due Monday, it could probably make it there. But if you were in San Juan County and it needed to make it to Logan, if you send it Friday, it might not be. So the delegates felt it was important to change that received by to postmarked by. Then everyone's kind of playing on the same field. So those are just some of the things that have come from the delegate process on a national level and on a state of Utah level. So with that, I want to keep this as short as possible. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I've provided my email and my phone number as well. I'd love to talk to you more about the delegate process, but I hope if you don't have any questions, we will see you guys at convention this year. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later.